Come on.
They're right there!
Let's go. Move, 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 move.
This episode of Choices Not Chances is sponsored by Louisiana Gun Shop, located in Broussard, Louisiana, just south of Lafayette. For more information, stay tuned at the end of this episode. This is Choices Not Chances podcast with Ryan and Matt. I'm your co-host, Matthew Charette, and sitting next to me is Ryan Rogers.
As the chopper descended towards the earth, I felt my heart skyrocket. I flipped down my PVS 14s and stood up behind Staff Sergeant Wright. As the bird put down, there seemed to be an excessive amount of debris in the air. Everything slowed way down for me, which seemed odd. This is the altered speed of the mind, which is common and is called tachypsychia. For someone affected by tachypsychia, time perceived by the individual lengthens, making the time seem like slow motion, or the opposite, speeding it up, making objects contrast and pass like a speeding blur. For me, everything felt like slow motion for the first few minutes of the drop. As soon as the bird touched down, Wright was stepping off the ramp with me right on his ass. Then the shit hit the fan. I ran right into the back of him. I remember thinking, what in the fuck is he still doing in front of me? He was supposed to button hook and get out of the way, start a perimeter. We'd practiced it about 1,000 times the last few days. That's when I realized that the excessive debris in the air was in fact water from the LZ that was flooded that I just stepped off the bird onto. I flooded Poppy Field. I landed on Staff Sergeant Wright and the rest of the stick on top of the both of us. The Taliban had flooded the fields expecting our arrival, presumably. Picture 48 Marines all piled up in a muddy damn mess that's only about 15 by 15. Misery started to set in. Welcome to the suck, as they say. Not only was it a flooded poppy field, but it was literally swallowing my Marines. Before I knew it, I was about knee-deep trying to trudge out of the mess, all the while trying to keep my rifle clean enough to fire. Of the almost 50 Marines on my stick, Staff Sergeant Wright, Corporal Bennett, my point man Wetzel, and I were the only ones to make it out of the mud initially and get to dry ground. Dry ground was only about 15 meters in any direction from the center of the mud hole. Not your textbook insert. Once on the ground, I started to get my bearing back and time began to speed up considerably. Everything happened so fast, but I remember the bird finally taking off after the last Marine disembarked. As I watched him pull into the night sky, there were tracers from enemy fire coming from the ground and the sky all over. I also saw several IR canisters drop from the AC-130 gunship in a couple of huge circles illuminating the whole area of operation. This was something to that point in my career I had not seen before. That same AC-130 would be the bearer of bad news about 20 minutes later. And that is an excerpt out of my new book, Lions of Marjah. And we're going to talk about that insert tonight. And, Matt, I'm going to get your perspective, and I got some questions on, what was going through your mind, as we started to descend. The 2-minute call went out, and then 30-second call went out. Nods come down, guys stand up. And, it was like the second that we stepped off, everything was instantly wet, instantly just completely fucked up, beyond recognition, the old food bar adage, right? And it was like, holy shit. It would be one thing if you disembarked off of the aircraft like that and you didn't have technical vehicles to the south of you firing at your chopper as it pulled away. Right. Because you'd be like, this is bad, but it's not that bad.
Or if it was daylight and they dropped us in mud, it probably wouldn't have been as bad either.
Correct.
That just adds a whole, of course, it's night.
Correct. And so that got bad. And the book details how the evolution out of the mud happened. But I'd just like to get, from my perspective, but from your perspective, you were a little ways further back in the chalk. So
I was third or fourth off the bird. So I was right behind y'all because I was in the center with someone in between my legs. But I think I made them get behind me. Okay. I always like being
next to the gate, baby.
Always.
You can see everything.
I'll just say that was probably the worst day of my life.
That was a bad day. I mean, this mud, guys, it was insane. It wasn't just mud. It was like sinking sand. I mean, we literally almost lost people to the mud. Like we had Michael Grimes on here just the other night, and he's telling about how he had to help save, one of my saw gunners.
Rocolo.
He went face down in the mud, got hit in the back, boom, his pack landed on him, and he was face down, face in the mud when he got pulled up out of it. And just wild couple of minutes. And literally it was only a couple of minutes before we got people, maybe five.
Yeah, it wasn't even
5-6 minutes.
But it seemed like hours.
Yeah, and when there's, when gunfire coming from the ground and
I don't remember that. I think I had auditory exclusion.
Yeah.
Until when the chopper took off, you went from the loudest thing you've ever heard
to silence.
And I was like, well, okay then.
Yeah.
And now you couldn't hear me yelling, what the fuck at the top of my lungs whenever I'm face first in the mud and I pick my head up I actually wasn't wearing NVGs, which is what's a mistake that I made. I was actually wearing the monocular.
Oh, you had the
thermals,
minis on, yep.
And
little depth perception issues.
Well, I would have had it with night vision too, but maybe I hadn't trained with those very long, so it might have.
So you might have had a little depth perception issues.
Maybe so.
Roger. Yeah, especially with a 24-inch drop coming off of the 47.
Straight in the mud. And I mean, I tore my pants open, as I think we talked about.
Oh yeah, from the crotch to the ankle, we had several guys that the mud just ripped their clothes off. I mean, this was insane.
As I came, well, I guess I'll get to that. I'll try and do it in order. But as soon as I hit the ground, whoever was coming behind me, and maybe one day we'll figure out who was behind me, and
likely somebody in your team.
Likely, it might have been Wetzel. That might be the reason he got out of there. I don't know. He might have been able to walk across me because I got forced into the mud even further.
You got punished.
Yeah. And then the rest of the stick is coming over that.
Dude, man, I remember getting out and getting to like dry ground. And I remember thinking all he had to do was glide the door on the ground for another 30 feet. And we got out dry. And we're in a perimeter and we're set. Right? And it's like, I held a lot of anger for that for a long time, man. Like, oh my God.
If that Army pilot's out there and he eventually listens to this, just to let you know, I will punch you in the teeth one day. I'm just telling you that now.
It'll be because we love you.
And I'll buy you a beer right after I punch you in the teeth, but you're getting that one.
You had that one coming, is what he's saying.
And I know they landed it on GP. They landed it on a 10-digit crit. That's all it was. And they didn't deviate because of the IED threat. Because at one point in the intel briefs, I remember hearing, we'll be lucky if they don't land on an IED or we don't step on one off of the bird. So, I mean, I understand. I'm just playing around, kind of. He's still got a punch coming.
Sort of. No, but really, so, and then that morning it didn't get much better after that. We finally get everybody out, and I think out of 54 people, we had 6 weapons that could fire because people's barrels were caked from the muzzle to the chamber. And that, didn't I guess expect it. Learn that lesson, even though you're in the desert and it hasn't rained in ages. Put the condom on the barrel.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
that's lesson true. Learned, bro.
I never thought about that.
Yeah, put the condom on the barrel and treat it like you're going into a flooded poppy field because it happened to us.
Right. I never actually thought about that because that would have saved a lot of heartache that day.
Oh my goodness!
I think my ejection port was mudded up. Like if I hadn't got it before it started to dry, we might have never got that weapon working.
I mean, it was bad, and then to compound the issue, we go into it. I go into it a lot in the book, and a lot more detail. But to compound the issue, we have my arrow is stuck in the mud, and his radio chirps off, and it's the AC-130. It's the AC-130, and it's barking down to us, and it's 2-2. Hey, be advised, you got enemy element, platoon size, small arms and machine guns headed your way from the north. And boom, we look up to the north, and like the next field out, maybe 300-400 meters out, was a field, but it had the round bales in it of hay or straw or whatever the hell they had, poppy stems, whatever it was. But it was round bales, and you could just see them like rats coming at us, scurrying from, and you could see the RPG sticking up because that thing dropped those canisters, and It lit up I think the canisters, when I looked it up, light up almost a square click. It's like 700 by 700, like daylight. Boom. And you could see everything.
I wouldn't know.
And, well,
my fault.
Work harder.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that was one of those things that everybody heard. And then I could just look down in the mud, know that I got 6 weapons that I know we can use. And I'm like, all right. So we might still have even numbers, right? And
They're still outnumbered regardless. I mean,
yeah.
Obviously outnumbered at that point.
Clearly. 6 to a platoon, easy day. And not really. So I'm like, this isn't happening right now. And we got the Arrow, and I think 2 Bravo and the Arrow talked together. And then we had skids on station, Cobra section. And they pushed from an IP, and as they're coming down, I'm late, like in my sights on these guys, and I start seeing the firefly, infrared firefly flicker on the chest, and I'm like, no, that's friendly. And then so the Arrow calls them off, aborts them, and the choppers, like something out of a movie, go back up to their holding pattern, to the IP, and it's like, oh my god, like okay, this would have been awesome, minute 7. International incident, 30 Afghans and killed in a.
We don't have those numbers to rely on either when on the ground, because those are good. Those are our guns,
Right.
And then we have to get medevacs in there and make sure they don't land in the mud.
This
is all coming into my mind right now, just thinking about it.
Oh, catastrophe. And then if you remember, that field, that area is where the enemy came from and hit us when the sun came up. Right back there where. Woundy and those guys landed in the field behind us, and that tree line and that set of compounds was where we got some.
Right. I will say, I know you remember it because we talked about it the other day, but when I think it had to have been after the chopper left, because you're not going to hear me when the chopper's still there, but I yelled at the top of my lungs, I fucking quit. And you were like, you can't quit. And I said, I don't really quit, but I felt good to say.
Just wanted to say it because I knew it was impossible anyway.
Right. You can't quit in the middle at 2 o'clock in the morning.
We're not quitting.
Afghanistan.
We're not quitting, dude. We haven't been shot at yet. We haven't found the people we're supposed to kill.
It did kind of broke my mind.
When you do on-off drills, for a week, making them flawless and putting the time in. And I say a week. That was just what we did right before, but. We were prepared, we were ready, and then you come out and you have that Murphy's wrench come flying in, and bam, your whole plan gets shattered to pieces. And that's a big thing for the leaders. I look at 2 Bravo in that situation, and rock solid, man. Just as I started, felt myself. It's not like I felt like I was slipping, but it was a little bit of a desperate situation, and I'm like, okay, like we're gonna do this. I'm going to bring in anything I have to do this, and we'll get it done, but it's not ideally what I wanted to happen. That's not the insert that I had pictured in my head. And 2 Bravo's like, so fucking what? Get them out of the mud. We're about to move. Get your head back in it, because it's and
no big deal. Just
and that day it was like boom, there it is. Because the calm, his calm, my calm, after the situation started to pan out, everybody was calm. Right. And if you go to start freaking out, do that shit in your head. If you're in a leadership situation, because when you start doing that overtly, it's contagious. It's a contagious thing. So that's a big lesson for that one, in my opinion. So anyway, I want to get back to you. So we're out of the mud now. Crisis averted. We didn't ambush our own friendly Afghan troops. And they're still a ways out, and we need to get some cover. We needed to get to our foothold building on 608, which was the main MSR coming into Marjah. And then our mission would be to overwatch the city of Shiniwal as one of our partner platoons from the company. Second platoon or first? It was Franco's platoon and Harms as they moved through.
I think he was third platoon.
Third platoon. Yeah, and so as they moved through Shiniwal, we had to overwatch and make sure that there wasn't reinforcements coming down the MSR to backfill on them.
And if I have the platoon number wrong, I'm sorry. It's been 10 years. So
yeah, right. Yeah, it's in the book. we can check it there.
Right.
Um,
You have to get
But-
the book to find out for sure.
yeah, right. But no, so we work up to our foothold building. Everything's under the cover of darkness, something like 3 in the morning, 3:30 in the morning, something like that. And now I've got Marines that are all soaking wet, all caked with mud. Some of them are slipping into hypothermia rather quickly and getting extremely cold rather quickly. And all of our rifles, except for 6, are in desperate need of some TLC
And some CLP.
and some CLP. Yeah, that ain't a lot. And so we take our foothold building that we just like threw a dot at on the map and said we should, not a dot, we strategically picked it, but it wasn't like we knew it had a water well. And so by the grace of God, this thing has a water well in the middle of it with like an infinite supply of clean water. And so the Marines are like dropping the bucket down, filling the bucket up, bringing the bucket up, washing 4 or 5 rifles, getting them clean, punching the bores, washing magazines, washing stuff out. And it was insane. It was like, oh my goodness, I'm so glad that there's.
Yeah, what would we have?
I mean, it would have just been punching mud. And at that point, yeah, it sucks, but you got to do it. We patch it, punch it, and patch it with rods. But the water helped out. We got everybody clean. We got the weapons up, which was the big thing by sunup. And we didn't receive contact at all in the field. We didn't receive contact at all in our building and under the cover of darkness.
Well, I do remember it took us a little bit to not egress, but to actually get to the building because we had to mine sweep all the way up to it. So
Yeah.
we only had like an hour or two before the sun, and I think you could kind of get that low light situation
beginning
going on as we made
twilight
it into
rays
there.
coming in. Yeah.
And we had to clear the building out and all that, which at that point I was in rare form, to say the least.
You went somewhere else in your mind.
In my mind for a second.
Yeah, and that's okay. Sometimes you do that. You gotta,
Luckily, we had, you're a good squad leader, and Bennett was an excellent team leader too. So, and we had Grimes. So, we had other team leaders. I'm not saying I abandoned my team, but I had to take a moment.
I
for
mean,
myself.
you were in bad shape with the hypothermia situation because now we're a couple hours in and you guys are freezing. It's about 38 degrees and sleeting. Well, at least it did the next couple of nights. I don't know if it sleeted that night, but we're soaked anyway.
Right.
I remember getting to the foothold and linking up with LT and the other squads, and like everybody's in warm, dry, clean frog suits, and all of us are just looking at them like we just came out of the pits of hell. And they're like, everybody just looked at us like we'd already been through it. And it was like, no, dude, we're so cold right now. You don't even know, right?
And, we packed so much ammo that we didn't pack.
No, there was no warming layers.
I had my green.
I wore my green sweatshirt.
Me too. Like, that's what I got.
That was the warmest thing I took.
And now it's soaking wet, so you're double screwed.
Done, right? And so
I could use a wetsuit right now. That's what I could use.
Yeah, no kidding. 4 mil, please.
Yes.
No, so bad situation. I started having guys really start to get, uncontrollable shakes and shivers, blue lips. And so called over Charette, and he was one of them in bad shape. I said, hey, get the 4 guys that are hurting the worst, start a fire inside that compound and smoke that, try not to smoke it out, but get them in there and get them warm.
Doc actually ended up starting it for us.
Okay, so
because Doc actually,
Fowler?
He was monitoring us to make sure we didn't need to be medevaced or anything like that.
Yeah, it was a real situation.
We didn't stay in there very long. Maybe 5-10 minutes, and I was a brand new man. Could have used a new pair of pants, but I was a brand new man.
Yeah, and I mean maybe it doesn't take much to get you back off
just a little sip of water and a little bit of heat, and you're ready to
off
go.
The train. And there was a lot of emotions, a lot of nerves mixed in with that for a lot of the younger guys too that were there. So we got them in there, we got them warmed up, started a little rotation before.
I want to say it was me and Colo in there the longest, probably.
You guys didn't have pants though.
Yeah. And I don't know if you remember, as I was walking out of the mud, that's what I was laughing about earlier. As I was walking, I finally get up, I get out of it. I'm on the path. I'm like, thank you. Solid ground. Solid ground never felt so good.
Love solid ground.
I hear Bennett yelling at Makowitz. Well, you better go back and get it. What are you gonna do? They're not bringing you another one. The mud was so. It had sucked on him so bad that it sucked his boot off his foot.
Yeah.
And I remember turning around like, well, I'm not going back for it. Like, that dude needs to go find his boot.
Yeah,
he should have laced up a little bit tighter at this point.
Yeah, I told y'all to lace up too.
And
did he get it? I don't remember that.
He dove in
as I remember. And one day we'll have him on, but we'll get him to tell the story. But
he had to have gotten it.
I don't. Yeah, I mean, he was walking around with two when the sun came up, so I guess.
Or else he had another one in there, and he pulled old righty tighty out of the backpack.
I guess if he had just the one, that would be pretty.
I mean, he would probably have the other.
Nostradamus-esque.
I know. I'm saying he probably had an extra pair of boots in his backpack.
If he did, then I'm gonna beat his ass next time we see him. Because he should have been carrying more ammo.
Spread the love, man.
10 years later, still salty.
Still salty, yeah. Yeah. So crazy situation.
But yeah, I just thought that was funny that it's just, and I think we weren't the only one.
And I think the more fucked up it got, the more people started relaxing, just like whatever. Like
we're gonna get out and
because you have this, and maybe you didn't. I had this beautiful vision of what would happen.
Oh, for sure. Yeah,
we would come down, high speed off the gate, set the perimeter. Oh, go, pick it up. Yeah, man. Maybe we fight.
Maybe we fight. Maybe they're ready. Yeah, no. Thank God they weren't ready.
And then when that happened, everybody was just like, "All right, well, fuck this. Well, whatever's next, I don't care. Just tell me where to go." Like it got to the point where there's so much trash everywhere that, well, using the metal detectors kind of like where we landed was pretty much pointless. And all of their land bridges had metal in them, like to help out structural integrity, wise. And so it's like we start to minesweep anywhere we would minesweep. Beep, 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 beep. It's like, really?
That's not working.
Pack that thing up, dude. Watch where you step. Tap the bridges twice. Hold on to your junk. Like, yeah. And so it became stupid early. And we hadn't even mitigated the known or highly suspected minefield on the other side of 608.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, we get into the foothold, and then it was.
Once everybody got warm and everybody had clean weapons, the confidence level went through the roof. And everybody's like, okay. And then
the sun came up.
And they were a little extra mad. At least our
don't shoot it.
Our chalk was a little extra salty about the present we had.
Right. If you initiate contact on us for the entire fire, the entire battle, you're gonna stir the hornets and stuff.
That's what happened.
Yeah, I know.
That's what happened. So Franco's clearing out shinny wall. We're covering the MSRP, and everything's fine. And I get a clack from E-Man over the radio, and he's like, "Joe Son Rogers." I'm like, "Joe, sir." And he's like, "Yo, get that APOB out here. Got IED on the bridge. We're going to set it up for later." "Roger, sir." So I get the engineers, get the APOB packs out. And APOB's a anti-personnel obstacle breaching system. It's a dual backpack system that fires out. It comes with a little rocket, right? And then you attach the little rocket with like a D-ring or some little clamp to this tether cord that has like
engineer cord with 144.
Yeah, frag grenades.
Either 140 or 144.
Yeah, so you set the two backpacks up. They're all hooked together. The cords are hooked together, and so what it's used for is to clear an obstacle, right? So for us, right on the land bridge that we had to use to support for third platoon, was it third? Yeah, to support them, there was a command wire IED. Blatant 20-pound jug, ammonium nitrate and aluminum anal, right on top of the bridge. And then you could expect from years in Iraq and different places that the possibility was high that there was 2 or 3 more buried.
Oh yeah,
right around it.
Secondaries.
Right? Oh yeah, secondary and tertiary IEDs, and a lot of times that was the tactic was let's set one that is obvious that they can see. And that as they try to mitigate that or whatever, as they try to come up to it, maybe the egress routes from it, maybe, whatever. Maybe they expected it to be trucks coming through there and they didn't know.
Or they expected us to be in Shinnywall and come across the bridge to secure the bridge. Because they know the bridge is an objective for us.
Right, and they had command wire running to our side of the road to a building. Right. And so we cleared that out. They bailed, right? So they bugged out probably when 36 helicopters landed in their backyard. And they were like,
we'll fight them. We'll get that in. We'll get back to that.
We're going to take a different approach, you know?
Just for those folks who might not know, anal, when he said it earlier, that's aluminum and ammonia together.
Ammonium nitrate.
Ammonium nitrate, yeah. Yep. So
that's what they made,
homemade explosives, so we just call it anal for short.
Anal for short. And anal will ruin your life, we found out. It packs a punch. So. And
But yeah, so command wire running
Yeah,
back to the
so
bridge.
yeah, so I
APOD.
mean, it was a regular tactic though from the last 10 years of war and being in and out of Iraq. We're going to bury 1, 2, 3 in a big array, and then we're going to put up one that they can see to suck them in. And they started. Then they knew our tactics, man. We publish them. We talk about everything. So
And they're always watching.
and they're always watching. They're always watching. Always watching. And we have. I write about it. I mean, they would know how many people left the wire at exactly what time and what they were wearing, and so we played games of cat and mouse with them throughout the deployment, like where we'd take 28 guys out and send 14 of them back at sundown, so they couldn't count them.
Right.
And then they come scurrying about.
Mm-hmm.
And so now we're going to use the APOB shot to shoot straight over the command det IED, and if there's anything within 3 to 6 feet of that, hopefully sympathetically detonate it.
Right. And
Without
hopefully not blow up the bridge.
without losing structural integrity of the bridge that we have to use to cross.
Because the bridge, underneath the bridge, was the same exact water and mud that we just dealt with. And I'm not about that life.
100%. And I think it was way deeper than us. And we were a
Yeah.
couple hundred pounds, so
Yeah,
we weren't
we're not.
making that.
We would have had to go down the road to the secondary.
Yeah, and that's an interesting thing to bring up.
Well, we talked about that last time in the planning.
Yeah, the planning phase, and I want to talk about it again. I can't stress enough how important it is as a leader to two things: A, be humble, and B, go to your guys. See how your guys want to feel out the situation. It's one thing to be a leader and be like, "Hey, this is what we're doing because I said." Okay, great. What if you asked your team leaders to come in, or in this case, your squad leaders, by your lieutenant to come in, and your platoon sergeant, and say, "Hey, this is what we got." And he presented us with 2 options, right, and to discuss, and it was open to a 3rd option if it would have come up. But I mean, it wasn't too many ways to go.
What are we going to do? Carry a man portable bridge?
Well, we didn't have them,
Right,
or we
so-
would have, but. So he brought us in and he really took it. I just remember thinking that, and we're the same age, but he's a first lieutenant at the time, and I'm a sergeant at the time, and I have been over to Iraq and I've been on these different deployments, and I never had a commander when I was a squad leader. I did multiple squads overseas, and I never had a commander do that. Call me in and say, "Hey, what do you think about this? All right, where are you at on this?"
Right.
And then look at the next guy. Hey, where are you at on this? And I always remember appreciating that, because it showed me that, yeah, he probably let, either one of those choices that he boiled it down to, we would probably been okay. But he wanted to bring us in for our input, and I just always appreciated that. So it's a good leadership trait. You don't have to exclude your guys. I mean, you're all in this together. So I always loved that about him. So
For sure. And it wasn't just that time. I mean, it happened throughout the deployment. He just wanted you to run your business.
So we're in the foothold building still, and we make first contact. Drop a couple guys in the tree line. Myself and Simmering hit them. Follow that tree line north. We got guys now with RPGs. Got RPGs flying over our building.
Right.
And guys, this is in much greater detail in the book, but I wanted to hit the tops right here. Some of the lessons learned for guys out there that can put that knowledge to use still, and just do a quick overview. You have to get the book to get the full details. But so the next thing we do, I don't know if it was a platoon from 3rd or our own, but somebody called in for a big bomb and needed to reduce a building. And after 2 flybys without being able to catch the target in the pop, that 3rd one got it.
Mm-hmm.
And
I was actually helping Posh, the forward air controller.
our FAC, yeah.
Yeah, I was helping him try and do that.
And that was Captain Backus, right?
Yeah,
Yep,
Captain Backus. I could not think of his name there for a second.
Yeah, he did a stellar job on that deployment, being a pilot, attached to us and put in some situations that, well, all of us had never been in before, like
Right.
bad situations, and he was able to get the air on top of us every time. I mean, there were times that the air couldn't fire for one reason or another when we were alone, but anytime we had Posh, that it came in,
Yeah.
and it came in nice. So one thing we realized in the book, or in the book I'm going to talk about and read a short passage, but one thing we realized was the fact that The enemy in Marjah didn't understand long-range weapons. They didn't understand HIMARS that just showed up out of nowhere, broke a sound barrier, and reduced a building.
I don't know if we understood HIMARS, really.
I don't know if I still understand HIMARS. I know it's very big and accurate within the 3 feet if you do it right.
Right.
If you do it right. And so even jets, fixed-wing jets, they didn't understand them. They had like chalk drawings of choppers being shot down by RPGs. There was no drawings of fixed-wing jets. There was no A-10 drawings. They didn't understand these weapons.
Well, you're not going to catch that with an RPG anyway, so.
Yeah, I guess so.
Well, I mean, you're going to have to be
I guess all
pretty
the
lucky.
all the fellas that seen those ones didn't live to draw it on the walls, I guess.
And there's that, isn't there?
And then there's that. And so, okay, so short passage from the book. Following the air attack, the battlefield went quiet for a bit. We call this a lull in the fight. I would conclude many months later that the enemy just did not understand weapons such as fixed-wing aircraft, surface-to-surface rockets, and long-range weapons. The furthest out they can reach us is from about 1,500 meters. That's with their machine guns and sniper rifles. We could drop bombs from the air, fire HIMARS and artillery from distances that exceeded 90 clicks. The HIMAR is a M142 high-mobility artillery rocket system. We used HIMARS a few times during the deployment, and when they were fired from several miles away from Camp Leatherneck. And so not knowing what that weapon system is, if you're part of the Taliban fighting us, and then unbeknownst to you, 90 clicks away, these guys are spinning up a mission to come to your building. And when you think about it like that, that's another thing we can get into after this, is just the support that we had there, and how none of this happens without all the support. There's often stigmas, you hear the pogue talk go around, the grunt talk go around, personnel other than grunts. We have the little intra-squad feuds and things of that nature, but when it came down to it, in a place where we needed help, we got our help,
Right.
And we got it on time and delivered effectively. And that was everything from food to ammo to support trucks to anything we asked for, right? Within reason. I mean,
Within reason, yeah. And as long as it was, we may have to wait a little bit, but yeah, they got it for us,
absolutely. And I mean, in my opinion, in my estimation, the Taliban didn't understand our sniper rifles.
No.
Our snipers could hit them from so far. I mean, they just didn't understand it. It was all like all of a sudden, boom, somebody's down, and they shut a battlefield down. I mean, for a while.
Yeah.
Like, they would reconsolidate and be like, hey, we didn't understand what that was. The finger of God came out of the sky and flicked them.
Anybody see what happened?
Yeah, I mean, well, I'll be honest with you. When we called HIMARS in after Bukola was shot on the wall on the second day.
You just want to cover the second day? I mean, we can push right now.
I mean, we can get into it.
That way it gives it some sort of order.
Yeah, well, yeah, I guess we can hold that. We're getting into it right now, I guess.
Yeah, we can fast forward.
Day one just pretty much concluded after we dropped that bomb. The battlefield kind of fell quiet.
We popped APOBs across the bridge, the first bridge, and
popped APOBs and cleared a path. It did sympathetically detonate a secondary underneath. And then we walked across the bridge and took a stroll over to where the company main was at now.
Through a quote-unquote suspected minefield or a field of IEDs that they thought might have been there. But you'll hear more about that movement in Grimes' episode when we release that too.
Yep,
so,
we did a good episode talking, giving different perspectives of the squad when going through a.
And he had a pretty good overview of the APOB shot that we did, because we were the ones providing security for it. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we mitigate the minefield. I remember that night. I linked up with company main from the squad. Got the link up, and we filtered into a very large compound within Shinny Wall that the company main had taken over. And I remember Sergeant Harms. It was always Harms, always Harms, right? Harms link up with me and show me where we were berthing, show me what everything was going on, catch me up on where the COC was going to be located, and where I could find, X, Y, and Z for my guys, where we were sleeping, that kind of stuff. And we'd only be sleeping a couple hours, but we needed a spot, so we got there and got you guys laid down. And I remember getting you guys laid down, so get some chow in your gut, top off all your magazines, clean your weapons, make sure your gear's squared away, brush your teeth, change your socks. the things that you're going to do.
Yeah.
You know, take care of your weapon, take
You
care
have
of
to
your
do
gear,
it
take care of
even though
yourself.
You're blasted. You're tired. You want to lay down, but you still got to do it. Of course, I didn't change my socks because I only brought one extra pair, and I wasn't
Yeah,
pulling
well,
that card yet.
Well, in the book you'll read about how I preached a lot of stuff and then ended up not changing my socks either. Paid for it. However, I remember that night we laid down. We got down. They were like, "Here's your berthing." It was an open piece of sand.
Right.
Check.
Maybe next to a little wall where our heads were.
Yeah.
A very little wall.
Like a shin high wall, and
Yeah.
right behind that were the 60mm mortars.
Yep.
Who right after the whole squad fell asleep, decided to sink their base plates for one time, and then nobody was asleep.
At all. No, I'm pretty sure I fell asleep after that. After they sank it, but
The rest of the squad was still sleeping. Me and you were still talking, but
yeah,
they were all risen quickly.
the guns came out pretty quick. I will say.
It's like no, chill. Be quiet. It's okay.
It's our stuff.
I know. Rough day.
Really? You didn't have enough time to sink those base plates when
Daylight.
during daylight
When we were fighting the enemy.
Right. Why were they? Well, they were with us though.
True.
Well, some of them, I don't know who that team was behind us, but they were with us. Actually, there's a good video on YouTube.
First hours of
yeah.
Marjah. Yeah, that's a good.
Just remembered that one.
That's a good. First hours of Marjah. Type that in the search bar on YouTube. You'll see a little bit of that whole first day. One of the first compounds we're at.
I'm in the video here. I think you can see you in the video.
No, you can't see me. You can hear me. I was calling for fire
That's
on
right.
those guys in the RPG or whatever it was they were shooting at us back there.
Yeah, pretty good mortar team working the gun.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Owens and some of those guys just absolutely doing great work. Short video, but it give you a little bit of concept. That's first hours of Marjah. But we got kind of lucky because we had you could consider it lucky or unlucky, but I liked them. We had some combat correspondents attached to us, and not going to mention their names or anything like that, but they did good by us with the amount of chaos that was going on. They were able to document some really great things that helped out later, either both with the book and now with the podcast and with guys and memories and just things of that nature. And, one of the biggest things, and we've already talked about this with doing the podcast like this, is putting this knowledge out there. I mean, Jocko Willink is doing it. Cleared Hot. A lot of these guys are just doing great things. And the more stories that we can get out there to show the American people, the ones that want to know, and maybe even some of the ones that didn't even know they wanted to know, get into it. And they're like, oh my goodness, because we need to bridge that military-civilian divide.
Yeah, you're going to hear us talk about that a lot. That's going to be, we're
It's
not going to say it just once.
It's huge. It's a must. And, if we can do that by getting these guys on here, telling their stories, spreading good knowledge for veterans and good knowledge for guys that have been downrange, that's the whole point. The whole point is, if we can help one guy, I don't care how many episodes, do 100. If I help one person, well, then that makes it worth it to me.
Yep.
And so this is a passion project, and that's what it's geared at. But yeah, so we'll get back over to the book. So Valentine's Day, was it Valentine's Day?
It was Valentine's Day.
Valentine's Day, yeah. So Reveille's like 04. I get called up to CLT, and we're going to go over the battle plan for the day. He tells me the order of movement. We're like second to last or something. And we were going to be moving to the point so we could go find where there was a master bomb maker and some bad dudes that I guess they wanted us to go get. But the big deal was the land bridge and the bazaar,
Right.
so that we can control entry or whatever. And not whatever. I mean, so we can control entry to the city and control who comes in and
That
out.
was the MEB Objective 2. I mean, that bridge was MEB Objective 2, so we could secure the bazaar, the MSR, and all that, running through the north part of Marjah.
Yeah. And then it cuts that off from, vulnerabilities or, attack avenues coming from the east out towards 5 Points, which is where we would ultimately end up.
Right.
Where the fighting went. But so I get to the squad. I brief the team leaders. Hey, this is what's going on. Sun starts to come up around like whatever 5:30, 6 o'clock, and the front of the column begins to move out. And here we are because of dispersion purposes and the threat of IEDs. One person goes out, and then it's like 30 seconds, maybe 40 seconds. Another person goes out, and we got to wait for 50 people to get out.
Yeah.
30 people at least to get out in front of us. Yeah. And so finally we get out, and what's crazy is I always relate it to the Marine Corps commercial from back in the day where all the Marines are getting off of their, tracks and their tanks and their choppers, and like they're all running into the fight, right? They're literally running into the fight, and they're like, Marines, we go into the fight.
And they probably weren't even Marines in the commercial.
Regardless, that's what it felt like, because when the sun came up, they started banging up there with Lieutenant Neff and some of those guys from that platoon up there. And the next thing you know, we're coming out, and the next thing you know, we're going right at that fire, and we're ready. I mean, we wanted to get to the fight. We wanted to get there to help them. At first it was just small arms, pop, 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 and then you'd hear them release a burst, doom, doom, mortars, RPGs, and we get like halfway there, and we can start to see the smoke billow, and now we can start to see the battlefield a little bit. And then the order was like, pick it up, because it was like a fast walk, and then it was like, hey, we're getting close, it's time to pick it up. And everybody started doing that trot, and everything I always think about in my mind, it always makes me think about the same thing when if you've ever seen the movie, I think it's Troy. No, is it Troy with Achilles? Yeah, where Achilles and his guys are taking the beach, and they're running, and then it's like they're running faster, then they're running faster, and then it's all on. We just didn't have swords and shit like that. We had guns and rockets. But anyway,
just as cool.
It was pretty awesome. I got cold chills doing it. But it was like 38, because it could have been that too.
Yeah. I think it might have been colder than that day.
Yeah, so, but it was awesome. I mean, it was awesome to see not one bit of hesitation in the 30 dudes in front of you. They said, pick it up. Everybody passed the hand and arm signals back, and the Marines are in and out.
Right.
And they're coming at you hot. And it wasn't long after that before we were not seeing the battlefield, but we were on the battlefield. And we were told to move to the point of the company, or at least of the platoon at the time. It ended ultimately being...
And it was kind of weird because of the way the battlefield was laid out. I can still remember that first was to our left, and we were basically front, and then we had that long, big, that big field. I mean, just 800,000 meters to the next set of buildings.
Yeah, complete open steep, across there, and it's like, that's where they were, though.
Yeah.
And so it's like, we got weapons that can shoot that far. Roger that. We'll post up here. It's like we drew our lines, essentially.
It was pretty good. It was a pretty good area to kind of hold up in.
And there's something to be said about that. I mean, when you look at the way these people have been at war for thousands of years, right? And like, so if you look at their compounds, they're built for that. They have a courtyard compound surrounding their inner compound, or a courtyard wall. And these walls are anywhere from 20 to 30 inches thick of hard-packed, beginning of time mud that you can hit with we found out later multiple times you can shoot a law rocket at it and get score a direct hit, and they'll bark back right out of the tunnel.
On that, I remember the engineers that attached to us when we were still at Dwyer. They actually had, remember when we went out to the squad range, which I think we had talked about, but I remember we watched the engineers, or maybe EOD, and they were trying to create charges to blow holes in the mud, and they pretty much were like, we can't carry enough explosives for that. Like, you get one, maybe.
Well, I think the machine gun, okay, we'll get into the machine gun bunkers, but they needed like a couple satchels apiece to take them down completely. The EOD did. But so now we're moving to the point. We move up, and as I'm moving up with the point man. Whole squad's behind me. We're going through a couple little interconnected buildings, and then I come up to, basically the last row of buildings, and there just happens to be like a old time, not even fully constructed courtyard wall, and
about chest high.
Yeah, I mean,
depending on who you are, but yeah.
I mean, it was like it was built there for us. Like, hey, how you doing? You know. And so we filled in echelon by twos under fire up to the wall, and then we went to work, and it was just kind of crazy that they would stay in their line and we kind of held our line. Well, I mean, we were maneuvering other elements, but our line held. And
I'll tell you one thing: I'm not buddy rushing across there with busted ass pants.
800 meters.
800 meter buddy rush.
Yeah.
What is this, CAX?
Have fun with that.
I mean, if you'd have told me to, I would have told you. I would have bitched for a second, but I would have done
Absolutely. And we can't complain about anything. Guys have been in situations worse than this
Way
for
worse.
sure, and had no support, no air, no artillery, no anything. And for us, I'll be honest with you, it's everything you'd ever want to do.
Yeah.
Every resource, every asset. We had EOD attached rolled with us the entire way.
Yep.
On the invasion for the first week or so, we had air stacked up every 5,000 feet, I would say. There was always gunships up. There was always support. Now, whether or not that support was able to release their payload once in a while was, questionable and tossed up. But we always had assets available.
Another thing,
In a way in which I never had them before.
right? Well, I mean, when you take down a Taliban stronghold, they're gonna give you a little bit,
Yeah.
at least.
At least in the beginning.
Two things actually. The thing that I remember was I think we were supposed to be on, and you can correct me if I'm wrong or if you remember it differently, but I remember we were supposed to be on MEB Objective 2, which was the second bridge, day one. We were supposed to clear MEB Objective 1 with the bridge, the first bridge where we popped the APOPs on day one. Roll through Shiniwal, where company was already supposed to be at, roll down and take MEB Objective 2. So
That's correct.
I remember hearing someone, might have been LT, might have been you, but I think it came down from either company or maybe even higher, that they were basically preaching tactical patience because of the IED threat, if I remember right. And just, hey, we're going to get to MEB Objective 2 when we get there, but if we can do it in a safer manner, I mean...
look, man, there was a lot more resistance than what was anticipated. They anticipated that we in one day would have the objective held, and I mean, those guys fought. They stayed right there. They dug in. They fought, and even for that whole week after we had the objective, I mean, they fought.
Right. Oh yeah.
I mean, I tip my hat to them. They weren't good enough. But they had big. They had big balls to fight the United States Marine Corps conventional. I mean that's. Hey, my hat's off to you. I'll oblige, but that's insane.
We're not gonna lose.
I mean, it's like I was in Iraq in different places, and they didn't do that. They were afraid already. I hadn't been first boots on deck to show them why to be afraid yet.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, they put up a fight.
Yeah.
It took us 2 days.
Well, also with these guys,
Or 3 days. No, it took us 2 days.
2.5, yeah.
2.5 to set up, and on the third day we swept the objective, and yeah, so we ultimately, the end state was accomplished. It just took us a couple extra days,
Yeah, I mean,
a couple extra hours.
That shows patience by the commanders up high too in that situation, because you want your objective complete, but you don't. Not every war story, but you've heard the war stories where
they're driving them regardless.
Just throw bodies out there, and it all depends on what the objective is going to be. You know?
Right.
And do you have enough troops to throw against that? We didn't. We were surrounded. We would have had to wait for India Lima if we started taking too many casualties,
Well, and that's the other issue, is that it wasn't just us. So we helo into the center of northern Marjah. 1-6 has Bravo Company helo into the center of southern Marjah. Outside of that, every other company from those battalions and the British forces and all other coalition forces that were part of Operation Mashtarak were literally squeezing them at us.
Right.
And so it made for a target-rich environment, but you're right.
Sure.
I mean, it also made for hey, let's not jack this up. Oh, and by the way, Lima Company is going to be behind on getting through because they've met so much IED and ambush resistance.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't just us. It was just I think maybe, and I don't know, obviously we did okay, but maybe it was underestimated.
Yeah.
Maybe, and that can happen. We're working on incomplete intelligence and incomplete information, and they shaped that city. They sent different secret squirrel people in there to shape it and to find out what they. Yeah, we don't have to get too far into it, but I mean, these people did their due diligence to try to help us out, and they still. They still amassed more fighters than what we assumed. They still had IEDs planted everywhere. And I remember a lot of the IEDs, well, not a lot, but a significant number of them were bad, where maybe they anticipated us coming earlier.
Right.
and now they'd been sitting out in the weather, and the pressure switches were coming up because they had been on, maybe
Or the
storm.
battery's going bad.
The storm season was right there, yeah. So we had a lot of situations, and then they had planted duds as well, though. I mean, and that just goes to show you they already knew what we were going to do. We were going to see them. It was going to freak us out, regardless of whether they had water in the jug or ammonium nitrate and aluminum, right?
Right.
And so, yeah, bad times. And the other thing is, like, we had a great command. Not like top to bottom, we had a great command, and they were there with us. So it's not like we're calling up saying, "Hey, it's really, really bad."
Yeah, I guess
it's like they're sitting back there watching us fight, 200 meters in front of us and creeping up along behind us, saying, "Hey, it's really bad up there,"
Right.
All right,
And
boys.
They're in the shit sandwich you're in because they're just as surrounded as you are.
And that's a fact. And I know even our quartering party with the company main took fire and took contact at company main. Like as it shifted, they would still get hit. And of course, we had rear security, and they had pretty good element with them and the internal company little Praetorian.
Right.
And yeah, man, it was like, so it wasn't like we needed to call and then embellish anything. It was like, hey, are you guys good? Let's bed down for the night. We're good. Find our, get your mess together because tomorrow it's on, kind of thing.
Right.
And then, so yeah, we're on the point on the wall that was made for us, and just banging it out with the Taliban, man. And that lasted all day.
Yeah.
When
we didn't. I don't think we got to the wall until what 9-10 o'clock.
Shit, maybe. Maybe. Mine 9:30, yeah.
Because it took so long for the entire echelon.
And you're filtering into full platoons plus attachments into battle space. And I mean, it was done seamlessly. So the commanders of the platoons, the squad leaders of all the platoons, the company commander, dude, hats off.
Right.
I mean, it was flawless. And you look back at it now, and now I've done a lot of studying of a lot of different attacks, different maps, different terrain, different situations. And it's like, for what we were presented, and they did a great job.
Right.
And it was seamless. And maybe too seamless because we felt invincible.
Yeah.
And that's how you have to feel. I'm not hating that. But you feel invincible until you're put down. And then you don't feel invincible anymore.
Right.
And you got to get that confidence back. So day 2, we're banging it out. And Vocolo gets hit.
Yep.
Pow. Which was
through and through to the shoulder.
Through the shoulder, all meat, no problem. Matter of fact, as he would tell it, and maybe he'll come on one day and give his recollection. But I was standing right beside him, and you were right there. Bennett, I believe, was the one right beside him, and he was getting some. Like he had the pig on the wall, and boom, he felt that shoulder, and what he told me was he thought Bennett like hit him and said, "Scoot over." And so he scooted over and laid another burst down towards the enemy. And that's when he felt like his arm was, like somebody poured water on him or whatever. And he's like, "Oh, shit, I'm hit." And then the corpsman come up and, got him patched up. And
I had never heard, I was his roommate when we got back. And I had never heard him. I had never asked him about that. How it felt or whatever.
I never asked him. Like, it's just what he told me that day.
Oh, okay.
I was like, "Are you good?" And he's like, "I didn't even know I was hit." Like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "I thought Bennett slapped me and told me to move over." It's something like that.
Right.
It's been a while, but it was along those lines. And I was like, "Damn." And the other thing is, he got patched up. They plugged his hole, and he got right back up on the wall. I said, "Hey, man, they're not coming in right now. You got to throw them through. Get the pig on the wall. Let's go." And like a beast, bah! He's like, "All right." I remember telling him, "Hey, get that gun back up." They just put a hole in you, make them pay for it, and you see that fire come back, and up on the wall he went. And motivating. So ultimately, cover of the book is actually of this day. I can give you guys a little shot here because of the glare on the back, but once again, Lions of Marjah, and that is Vocolo's actual medevac chopper taken off. And this is the smoke. This is a picture of me tossing the smoke for landing that medevac chopper. So we got some good action footage from our correspondents that were there for us, and
then graciously enough,
absolutely,
allow you to use it for the book.
Absolutely, came in clutch and did a lot of work for that. Actually,
and we're going to see if we can put them up on the Facebooks and all that, and on the social medias. But
we got.
I don't want to promise that right now.
Right.
Actually, that picture right there is you could probably see it in Ryan's.
Yep, he had just gotten in the bird. He had just gotten in the bird here on that day, Vocolo, after the fighting subsided.
And I think you had told me to glass something, or I was just glassing.
I mean, they were still fighting
Yeah,
going
I mean,
on. That guy came down with an escort and swooped in. And here's another thing. Let's just go ahead and hats off to Dust Off crew.
Oh my god!
Hats off to Dust Off forever, because you guys, man,
Yeah.
No words. You guys coming in, and I mean, you
come
watch
in,
them just go
whatever.
straight sideways with the 50 and bang, and then they swoop straight down. And I mean, every single medevac, smoke between the skids, baby.
Yeah.
Smoke
Every
between
time.
the
On
skids
top of the grenade.
every time.
Every time.
And you know, just
You know, that day when
Warriors,
when
man.
that chopper came in, when that helo came in, I remember, well, both of them, and they did the wagon wheel.
oh yeah,
I mean, and saw the RPG start flying. I was like,
oh yeah,
I've seen that movie.
dude.
It
And what's
didn't end well.
dude, what's crazy is, look, man. I mean, we got used to it, right? There was no nerves after the first couple of hours. Like maybe there was nerves, but there wasn't like. For me, there wasn't
Nobody
nerves.
ever,
It was just like you got
freaked out.
no, yeah, you got used to it, and like, but seeing these guys like descend to the earth, and then like the PJ, he just like jumps out. He's got like his little whatever his little thing is in
If
his
he
hand.
had flip flops and board shorts on and like just walked out there, I wouldn't have been surprised.
That's what I'm saying. He just jumped out like, no big deal, dude. Load him up. Let's go. All right, cool. How's you doing? Hey guys, you need anything? Call us up.
Yep.
All right, man. See you later. And then like they're gone. Whoa. Bah, 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 bah,
Milk-
firing the 50 for you.
Milk run accomplished. Let's go back to base and get some coffee.
Right.
you
Like,
know?
yeah. So the pilots there, all the crews, dust off, hats off, always and forever. You guys are
Another thing.
bad motherfuckers. How about that?
Yeah, there you go. And we don't even try and swear on the podcast.
No, but
You're
that's
bad motherfucker. You right.
That needed to happen.
And one thing that was pretty crazy, not only that, is when they came into Wagon Wheel, how low they
Dude,
were flying. I mean,
nasty.
treetop.
Nasty.
Right.
Nasty. And the 50 gunner had to be sitting on top of it because they were parallel and he was firing. So, and I've never been in one of those. Maybe not. Maybe you're just standing, but I mean, just amazing work.
Yeah, that is.
Couldn't
And
be
then
more
you
happy
remember
with
when they
any of
wouldn't
that.
let Colo. You talk about it in the book when they wouldn't let Colo take his weapon?
No, I didn't
Because
talk
he
about
didn't.
that.
He didn't want to get on the chopper because on the helo because he.
Now
they
he did say that. I mean, we ran him out, and as soon as I throw the smoke, in comes the bird, and as soon as the bird sits down, we're getting ready to go. He looks back and he's like, "Yo, Sergeant, I don't want to get on the chopper." I'm like, "You're getting on the chopper."
Really, we've got a $20 million piece of equipment coming in to get just you, and you're not going to get on the chopper
Into a hot LZ. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
getting on the chopper, son.
And I mean, where they put it and where we threw the smoke, it wasn't like the whole place was pretty hot,
Smoke between the skids.
but I remember actually it being smaller. But I
The
guess
area?
yeah. I mean, it was still pretty small for them to put it down, but I remember it being like
Yeah.
way more compact.
Yeah, maybe it felt that way
Yeah.
because everybody was shooting at us.
Maybe.
Yeah, it feels small like that when rounds are that close. And I'm not saying that to be joking. I have the map of the invasion, the little GRG still and stuff like that, and any compound that we had taken fire from, I would take a permanent marker and outline the compound in red, and putting a book together and going through things and really getting down to the details of where things were coming from. Every single building in Shinning Wall and down Cathy, down to the south where they were reinforcing through that rat line, every building was red. And then you go up to the bazaar, 2 machine gun bunkers, everything's red.
Right.
The houses we took over, everything's red. And it's like you remember that it was bad, and you remember you had to get small, and you remember that it was a fight. But I didn't remember that it was everywhere like that until I really started digging into it. I'm like, oh my God, literally we killed people from there. I don't know about killed people personally, but our company engaged and piled some people up from almost every compound.
Right.
Or at least took fire from there, and I would say returned fire and probably killed.
Yeah.
We were pretty spot on.
The only thing was the distance that day. I mean, it's hard.
They had range.
Hard
They had range, and they had an open field to work with. So it was like to come over there. And then, we found out later in that open field was where we lost our first Marine at.
Right.
Just a few days later, and they were traversing back to the company main to get batteries. But we'll talk about that probably in a later episode.
Yeah.
We'll really get into that one.
We might be able to make it to that one today. But you want to cover the HIMARS shot, or you want to push to Med Objective 2?
I mean, we can cover the HIMARS. I mean, there's lessons to be learned here. Especially for me, the HIMARS shot, I can go into it. We were on that same building. Vocolo got shot. And they were masking sniper fire with small arms fire. So it would be like a burst from a machine gun or a nice burst from an AK. And in that burst, the sniper was taking a well-aimed shot with a heavy caliber weapon.
Right.
And that's what caught Vocolo. And I didn't like that at all, and neither did anybody else. I called up and asked what we had. We had already done the HIMAR training prior to that we talked about in one of the last episodes.
We did that with, the Forward Observer.
Yeah, with the FOs, and we learned about it, so I knew what the capabilities were. I knew I could bring it right down on them. I knew it could fire from Leatherneck and have that building reduced in under 20 minutes as long as everything went up good. And then I remember at one point thinking, oh my God, like if I want to HIMAR, I remember they told me I had to be shot with a Vector dagger. Yeah. Well, I didn't have comms with Lieutenant Backus, or was it Lieutenant Mathlier?
One of them had, I don't know if they both had a Vector dagger, but I know one of them did, because...
Well, it was one of them, and I don't even know.
And they were usually pretty co-located, because that's an easy way to...
they were the FIST, so they were the fire support team. Yeah,
and they're going to deconflict their fires between ground and air, so...
Whichever one it was, I remember he was in the back, like on the back south side of our compound, where we were on the front east side.
Yeah, there was another wall that was behind us, and they were right behind that wall behind us.
Yeah, so what, like from our wall, 50 meters?
Yeah, not even that close, because we had to run behind that wall to get coal on the bird.
Yeah.
Which I think that the bird was actually after the HIMAR. You can correct me, but I think it was after the HIMAR shot, wasn't it?
Real close.
I actually can't place it.
I mean, if we think about it, they probably took this casualty out before they sent the rockets up into the airspace. So I would imagine, yeah. I just remember that I needed the Vector dagger shot. I knew that I wanted to use HIMARS, and I needed the Vector dagger shot. And so I left you in charge because Bennett was, I believe, at that point out on the knee-high wall firing south.
Possibly.
And
possibly.
Well, he had just peeled back, right? He would have just peeled back from there. And so I hauled ass. I mean, gunfighting was pretty intense. They were really getting their fires in pretty accurate at this point. And I was pissed about Vocolo. I'm like, no, this isn't happening. Bennett said that snipers out there has got to have sniper fire. We all agreed on it, and we need to mitigate that threat, before somebody else gets hurt. And so I just took off. Boom, I'm running, digging. I jump over the wall, and there was the whole fire support team, and I told them what I needed. Right before I had left, I had told Grimes to put a ground marker out of his 203 on the front steps of the building that I needed marked. He launched. I took off. After that, they shot the Vector dagger shot.
I think Grimes. I don't remember if that was Grimes' shot for that smoke or not.
That was Grimes' shot. It's in the video.
Yeah, but I think we were marking for smalls or RPG fire on that one. No?
Nope. I was marking for me to be able to go go hit that Vector dagger shot. And they did it. I jumped back and I ran back to the squad. Like, we were still fighting.
Right.
And
I mean, all throughout the day, they would kind of take a break, go drink some tea, maybe
move houses,
maybe dig a few more weapons up. Well, where's the Marines at? Oh, they're still in the same spot. I guess we can hit them again.
Yep. And dig spot.
I mean, it was continuous, but with lulls for sure.
Sadiq, right over there, Taliban. You see? I asked Sadiq using my hands and arms. I felt like I was back home playing charades with my brothers again. Sadiq got the point and searched the area to the south. When he looked back at me, I could tell he was clueless. He shook his head. No Talib. Yes, Sadiq. I got down in the prone position beside him, grabbed his Kevlar helmet, and with a bit of a jerk, I did my best to aim his eyes directly at where the fighters were exiting the canal. Suddenly, the soldier postured up tensely, and I knew he could see the target. Kind of the way a dog will perk up when a cat runs through the yard. It was always as though I could feel the excitement running through his eyes, into his brain, and in the rest of his body. It was firing on all signals, and on all the signals that one's body fires off when it's about to engage. I popped to a knee immediately. I'm still not sure what he said, but he looked up at me and spoke. It was something to the effect of, "Yes, I see them." Only in Pashtun Wali, which is the dialect of Arabic that they were speaking there.
Right.
"Shoot?" he asked. "Yes, shoot. Shoot now, Sadiq. Shoot right now." Instead of the Afghan soldier dropping back down to the prone where the weapon was easiest to control and in turn most accurate, he popped to one knee and manned the weapon up to his right shoulder. The soldier then took a few strides to the small wall that Vacola and Bennett were posted on and remained in the kneeling position. I didn't even have time to shout out an ad-rack before he ripped off the first burst of about 6 to 8 rounds of a medium-sized burst from a medium machine gun. One after another, he ripped bursts. I couldn't be sure of how many fighters Sadiq personally killed in the 6 to 8 round bursts that he was firing. However, all of them went down and none of them got up. There were several other Marines, corpsmen, A&A, and coalition forces on the field that could have contributed to the elimination of the enemy in that ditch. But I'm quite certain that most of them were because of a man named Sadiq. And I bring that one up because, man, it was the first time, I guess the first noticeable time. There were several times I got to see this, but when you want to talk about when you're in command of troops and you see that, the fire,
The click in the
it's
head.
like the fire. It's like you physically watched his chemical cocktail get dumped out of his glands and into his spinal column, and just like, yes, I see them now.
Right.
and then to be able to control the weapon, which Sadiq was a big guy. And when I talk about this, I go into detail in the book, but there was some stuff that I left out. Like, this was the guy that loved the Marines. He came and ate with us. He came and stayed in our berthing. Before the push, he made us give him a screaming high and tight.
And he was young, I think. Too.
Very young.
Like 18, 19 years old.
Yeah, very young.
I mean, he was our age,
Yeah. But
Because
the
some
rest
of
of those
the
guys
other
were,
guys were older,
oh yeah, the rest of those guys were 30s, 40s.
Yeah.
Older, But Sadiq was awesome. He was he even got to the point where he spoke like broken English by the time their Kandak got relieved. Like, he knew more words than any of his other buddies.
Right.
So he was one of our key dudes, and yeah, he was awesome. We gave him a 240 Bravo
Right.
for his first coalition weapon, and he busts a whole line of reinforcements in like 2 bursts.
Good move.
I see them now. So, yeah, pretty awesome there. Anyway, we just want to close out a little bit of that day 2 exercise, but
Well,
day 2 kind of,
the HIMAR and
the HIMAR, like we said in the beginning, the enemy didn't really understand long-range weapon systems. And if I'm being honest, HIMARS is like watching the finger of God come out of the sky and just absolutely reduce whatever it hits. It's insane. We had two of them come in on that attack, and they hit, supersonic. They come in and made a sonic boom, and then it just massive explosions.
Right.
And on that day in particular, that was a struggle for me later in my life. At the time, it didn't really. I suppose you could say it didn't really affect me. It was like another day. This is war. War sucks. But unfortunately, when those HIMARS did come, they came about 30 minutes later, right before Vocolo's bird came to pick him up and get him out of the zone. And still to this day, I think there's a lot of confusion surrounding exactly how that went down. But a vector dagger shot's supposed to be accurate within to 1 yard.
1 meter.
Yeah, or so 3 feet, give or take a couple inches. And it was off by 300 exact meters in an exact line to the north. And so it reduced the wrong building, and there ended up being some women and children inside the compound, unfortunately, that it hit. And, they poured out of it after that. And bad situation. You got 5 kids under the age of 5 that come out, 7 kids in all, and the rest women,
Yeah.
and likely being held as human shields because everybody else in the city proper was gone.
Right.
That wasn't fighting.
Or that
us.
was just one of the Taliban's family, not even human shield, just
Yeah, I mean,
just there.
I mean, definitely could have been, and again, could have been unlucky. But
or
so
it might be like a hurricane for them. Like some of them are just gonna ride it out. I mean, that's why their compounds are
made
impenetrable.
for it,
Yeah.
right.
So-
Likely, it was some affiliations to the Taliban, in my opinion. Being that everybody else was gone.
Right.
I mean, no way to really know. So they come out, and I mean, it's it's a hard thing to see when you're thinking that you're reducing building X and building Y is reduced instead, and then not only that, but it's full of citizens, of the area. That's rough. They come out and they were in bad shape, and I remember the captain tried to launch a mass casualty operation for him. He was sending one of the guys, one of the the other platoon squads out there across the steppe, even
Right.
in all the danger, in the face of all the danger, that those Marines went to cross that steppe, and the Osprey was in.
Inbound.
Yeah, well, it was Osprey, right? Tow
Yeah.
Rotor came in, and that was going to be the casualty, the mass casualty. And
I thought I remember seeing one on the ground, but I didn't. I don't know.
they were in zone later after that, but on that day, and I don't know if he made it to the ground and the other choppers started
Right.
taking fire, his escort, but one way or another, rockets started coming up from all sides and small arms, and so the CO waves that off,
Right.
and unfortunately, now we have our first situation of collateral damage, and that's. I put in the book that there's something that I put in there. I'm not going to read it, but it's along the lines of nobody wants to hurt the wrong people. The wrong people. Like but when you're dealing in war and you're dealing with rockets and missiles and guns and ugly people on both sides just really getting after it, you're going to have collateral damage. It's not that we welcome collateral damage; it's that the grunt understands collateral damage, and that's why we got to do our best as a nation to keep the wars off of our shores, because wars on our shores means the collateral damage is our people,
Right.
and guaranteed that if there's a war, there will be collateral damage. Everybody tries to do their best to not let that happen, and I think the United States probably hamstrings its forces more than any other country in regard to ROEs and trying to ensure we only kill the enemy, but nothing. War is far from perfect, and it's always going to have flaws, and one of those flaws is that innocent people are going to die.
Right. Well, two bad choices, right? I mean,
Bad choices.
rock in a hard place. We can throw out every metaphor there is.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, it's war. That's
Yeah.
what war is not
It's not
nice.
pretty.
Everybody thinks that war is this awesome thing because they go and they see the movies and it gets romanticized and Hollywooded up and it's like, yeah, and there's a point for that. There's a purpose to it. Like, check, got it.
Yeah.
We need to have those younger guys coming through and wanting
yeah,
that
and
romance and needing that
to go do
romance.
it,
Absolutely. And it drives the nationalism and it drives the patriotism. Like, got it. But, when you find yourself dead in the middle of it, it's unforgiving, eye-opening. It's, it's wild.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Sure.
And so that was one of those things that you just kind of had to deal with. And a lot of guys that'll witness things like this, myself included, suffered a little bit of a moral injury due to it, especially with the children and some of the different casualties from some of the collateral damage, from our time there. And that's a hard thing to notice. And the kids, we've talked about this many times before, but the kids, it's hard because it's like they're completely innocent to an age, and they just want to kick a soccer ball or go play rocks or because they don't have anything. They don't
Candy
eat
or a
good.
pencil or anything you can give them, they want it.
Right. Well, I mean, it's because they have nothing. These
Right.
kids play with chicken bones
Absolutely
and
nothing.
and things of that nature, and so they're so innocent, and then they get exploited for political cause, and it's like, well, sorry, you were unlucky to be born here.
Yeah, and it's all luck of the draw, really.
And yeah, so that's and just going back to the moral injury of children and collateral damage and stuff like that. That's not the only way that a moral injury can come about. And I was really affected by something in Marjah that was almost not combat related. It was just cultural, let's say. And that's when, you were with me. We would go on patrol, and they would have there would be children that were either like had some mental disabilities or pigmentation issues,
Yep.
They had that on their arms or face or whatever. And they'd have these kids chained up to like 3-foot chains in the courtyard,
Yeah.
120-degree weather, with a bowl of slop in front of them like they're a damn pit bull puppy.
Their
in a
dogs
fighting
actually got
ring.
treated better than them,
Oh yeah, their livestock got treated way better than their children a lot of times, and especially the children that had issues. And it was
Right.
like, that was really shocking, because like then you couldn't do anything about it, because they tell you, well, that's their culture and we're not here for that.
Right.
And it's like, oh yeah, and you gotta, I had the advantage of having been to Iraq already, having been to Lebanon and some other places, and seeing different cultures. And so I'm glad that I had. But for a lot of our guys, man, to see that like that for the first thing, you could see him. Bridges is one of the guys, one of our young guys, that I distinctly remember that affecting. And he never talked about it, but I could see it in his face, And he's a guy that had younger siblings and stuff like
Right.
that when he goes to boot camp. And then he comes to us 10 days later wearing the suck, looking at, 4-year-olds that are mentally retarded, maybe cleft-lipped a little bit, and they're sitting on all fours like a puppy with a metal chain and shackled around their neck, tied to a stake in the ground, and it's 118 degrees out. And he's laying there with flies all. And it's just like, it's a human being,
Right.
It's
And an innocent human being at that.
It didn't ask for any
And
of this.
it's not their fault they were born that way,
Yeah, and it's not like, that has nothing to do with combat. But when you see something like that, and you realize like that's normal. That's what they do. And
Well, another thing that I always remember too was there was stories of the Taliban having their I don't know how to put it, first boy or the boy for them.
oh yeah, that's bad
I don't know how long how far
whipping.
we want to go into it, but
It's cultural, right? So a lot of the times over there, they would use boys for pleasure and women for reproduction.
That's
So
right.
some of the young boys would be, the whipping boy for the old man, or for the imam at the.
and there's nothing we could do about it.
And one time they came out and offered a boy to big whiskey.
Yeah, I remember that.
We did
yeah.
an op, and we took the guy's house, and he was real nice, and came out and said, "You dicky dick," or whatever,
Yeah.
and offered his son, and we were like, man, and it's like, you want to put that guy down.
Right.
Like, so many times I was like, gotta shoot this, let these kids go, but then what?
Yeah, then they just go.
Then what?
Then they're just
Then they
taken
die.
advantage of.
They
or,
die
yeah,
anyway.
They either die or they get taken advantage of somewhere else.
Right. Yeah, man. Forcing,
We went
cultural
deep real
issues.
quick on this one.
Well, and nobody knows about this kind of, not nobody knows. All the guys that have been there know, and the guys that have, been around that for the last 25 years of war know, or 20 years of war know, obviously. But once again, this is about what we said in the beginning about bridging that gap. And a lot of people don't know that. And,
Right.
and then you come home and people want to know why you may be a little bit different. It's like, I just seen a 3-year-old get treated like a dog, and a dog get treated like a human being in a place where everybody wanted to kill me. You know what I mean? Kind
Right.
of thing. And it's like, so you got these different things you got to go through. But I just remember that being one of those profound things where I was just like, oh my God. And you can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And,
I'm sure-
and quite certainly that's going on right now, in several places.
Well, I was going to
Those
say,
same things.
I'm sure Leo's, law enforcement officers may deal with certain things like that in America. So,
Yeah,
and
my hat's off to them, because
Yeah.
you couldn't put me in that situation and expect me to follow your rules,
right.
as it were. Because that you got to stay away from some of that stuff. If you can't handle it. Those people that can handle it.
That's why I'm not a police officer.
Yeah, and you come from a family of police officers,
Right.
and corrections,
Yep.
guards, and
I'm not doing it.
Marines. We just marine it up.
Yeah.
grunt stuff.
Grunt
We'll
stuff.
do the grunt stuff, and you guys arrest people. How about that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
all right. So
you wanna hit a lesson learned on this one?
yeah, I mean, which lesson learned? There's a lot of lessons learned.
Don't bring a monocular. Don't try a new piece of gear for the first time when you're landing in the largest helo-borne invasion since Vietnam. Don't do that.
Yeah. So if you're gonna
if
insert an infill on the mini thermals, maybe the on-off drills all week with the mini thermals.
Yeah, and I think that's what I hadn't put. It's not like I had never put them on and looked through them or anything, but I didn't have a good.
She hadn't trained with them enough.
I hadn't
not enough time.
Familiarized myself with them.
I mean,
enough.
And I can get on my political soapbox about that for a moment, and it's not left or right. It's just like if you had money to give these guys these things to train with
Why didn't I have
back
money?
in the rear,
Yeah.
and you knew we were going to be doing this, and we just did a 10-month workup. Well, maybe we could have some mini thermals so we could train like we fight, because that's what we say.
Well, if you,
And then that doesn't happen, and then you fall in the mud.
that actually came with my JFO kit. That's why I got those. Like that was a little Joint Fires Observer kit that I was given, big laser and the radios, because that's why I had that radio. I was the only other one with green gear besides you and LT.
That's
and
true.
A team.
Rest of the proppers, yeah.
Yeah, the team leaders didn't get a green gear, but I had one.
Right. Right. Yeah, so that's definitely a big lesson learned. Train like you fight. If you're going to use a mini thermal, use it in your training. And guess what? If you don't have it, maybe pack that thing away and put your PBS 14s back up for the infill. You know,
Absolutely.
and I can hear you on that. And a lot of guys will say maybe just don't even wear anything when you're disembarking the aircraft. And that's a great idea too. I think at first, as we were first coming down, ramp was dropping. I dropped my nods down. And then I seen all the debris and it was kind of like chaotic. So I rolled them right back up as we began to get off. And I'm not saying that helped anything because obviously it didn't fare well in the mud. But if it was one of those nights where, you know, there was plenty of ambient light or the moon was high, you know, a lot of us didn't wear NVGs at all. You know, you would spot check, bring them down, give a scan. But having those things over your eyes the whole time is... it sometimes can feel almost debilitating.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I agree.
Especially if you have the lumen in order to, you know, be able to see without it.
Right.
So that's definitely a big lesson learned there. And then, you know,
stay calm in a bad situation. Stay calm.
Oh man,
big whiskey and you.
If you get in a bad situation,
yeah.
If you're the leader and you start freaking out, 80% chance that everybody under you is about to start freaking out.
That's right.
And if you're the leader and you're not freaking out, 80% chance those underneath you are not going to freak out. Okay. And this wasn't even something for me. It was like I had to look up to Big Whiskey for that one too. It was like 2 Bravo, not freaking out, and I'm like starting to, and like I'm not saying I'm freaking out, but it's a bad situation. You know, I felt a whole lot better when I knew the skids were coming in. Because it's like, okay, no factor, whole platoon. We got 8 HIMARS coming in hot. Like, nope.
But they don't kill everything.
Not HIMARS. Hellfires.
Yeah, Hellfires.
I think that's what they were outfitted with in those Cobras, right?
Yeah, and then probably had some rockets too. There's some other.
Well, they got that GAL.
Yeah, they got the GAL and
the heads-up display that I didn't know about. We can talk about that later.
Yeah. I think they had. Was it FAR rockets, FARs? Or
okay.
Maybe
they had a lot of stuff. What I do know is that they could have made short work of an enemy platoon if needed. Yeah. 100%. 100%.
And especially if they're marked with an IR strobe, I mean, you know, they're going to get it.
Yeah, Tally got your target. I didn't think about that, yeah. He's like, oh my God, the easiest gun run on the planet. Is he wearing an infrared strobe?
How did y'all get that on him?
Are you painting him?
But yeah, I mean, stay calm.
No, abort now.
Yes,
please
don't do that.
Yeah, staying calm is key, man. Stay calm, and I would say if you're just happen to be an air officer, maybe on the infill, it's going to be loud, but maybe have your radio not on the highest volume level that you could have. because once the helicopters go away, it's gonna be super quiet.
Yeah.
And then
Helen Keller probably would have heard that. Okay.
and it was very loud when everybody was trying to be church mouse like as they slopped out of the mud, and then two, be advised, you have an enemy element platoon size, and you look at all the lance corporals and their eyes are like, my gun won't fire.
Yeah.
All right, boys, it's about to get saucy then. And so maybe just keep that radio turned down a little bit or straighten the ear. I don't know. But to have it on blast in a situation like that was definitely a poor decision.
Right.
Didn't end up well.
Um,
Understanding that regardless of what you're doing, the mission has still got to go on. Understanding that when things go crazy, you can't quit.
right.
And I know you made the joke about I quit, and you didn't really quit. It was just like it was just like your breaking point. Like fuck, man. Like
Once you reach your breaking point, you catch your breath. And I say catch your breath. In your mind, you catch your breath, and then you continue. And that's basically what that was. I guess, looking back,
it was
on
more
it,
of a venting.
at the time, I definitely wanted to quit, though.
Yeah, I mean, bad situation.
What are you gonna do?
Well, and that's the point. I looked at you and I'm like, started laughing, like, "Oh, you quit, huh? All right,
Yeah.
stay here.
No,
We're leaving. We got a mission to do over here."
I'll be alone.
And yeah, so you picked up slack there. So move up into day 2, and day 2 was crazy. Day 2, we learned that we weren't bulletproof. Vocolo got through and through to the shoulder, and we got him out of zone, and didn't know when we were going to get him back. Had to keep his weapon because he's carrying a 249.
Yep.
249 goes to Grimes.
Yeah, and I took Grimes as
And you take the grenade
203,
launcher.
yep.
And 4, yeah. And so day 2, I'm already down. We're down a guy and spread loading gear, shuffling weapons, shuffling squads,
shuffling ammo.
ammo.
Oh no, we weren't really shuffling that, but
Well, there was a little ammo shuffling going
sure,
on.
yeah.
I mean, we had to get all the saw rounds spread loaded in day packs and things of that nature. Had to get all of his grenades and all of his. I think he was carrying claymores. He had 2 Willie Pete 60 millimeter mortars
Yeah.
attached to his pack, and so there was some spread loading.
yeah, and you're definitely not getting on that bird with all the ammo because we're keeping whatever.
No,
we
his
can.
mag stayed. His
Yeah.
tourniquet stayed. We stripped him of everything. Anything he had in the CLS bag, and so we didn't know when he was coming back. But it was like, we don't care. You want to get ice cream, Nicola?
Right.
Get on the bird, cuz
Even though you
enjoy
don't
it.
get on the bird.
Yeah, you didn't want to, but go enjoy it. And when we get back, and when you get back, we'll have all your stuff for you. No worries. And we never got a Vocolo back.
At all. Yeah.
They patched him up and got the infections, taken care of, and I think
He attached a battalion.
he attached a battalion, but I'm pretty sure he started running the det fac. So
He did, yeah.
the guys that we were capturing for the intel would come up and go to his detention facility, or not his, but the detention facility, and he would be one of the guards and place there,
Right.
checking out those guys.
Just real quick for the listeners, I'm going to wrap day 2 real quick.
Wrap day 2. Wrap day 2.
HIMAR comes in. Pretty much the battlefield went silent at day 2, or on when the HIMAR came in, and then we echeloned over to what would effectively be called the Alamo, and we stayed there for the night, and we'll pick up on day 3 for the.
There might be a little bit of Alamo talking.
Hell, we can roll with it, bro.
I mean, we're still on day 2. Let's close it out the right way.
Okay. Hey, I
So-
was just gonna bring it up to speed real quick so we could start on Meb
Yeah.
Objective
So
2.
let's close it out real quick. So the HIMARS rocket comes in and decimates the building. We have mass casualty situation. Mass casualty. Birds come in, and squad goes across to try to save what they can save and get these people out of there. And the Taliban didn't want us to help them, apparently, or else they just want to kill everybody. So they started shooting rockets at our choppers.
Right.
That became a very sticky situation. The pilots getting out of the way of rockets, like something you've seen in Black Hawk Down. And you're watching this in front of your eyes. It's almost like telling it now. It's like, did it really happen that way? And it's like, yeah, it really happened. That's the way it went down. And so, sad day, because of what had happened. I lost a Marine. We were shuffling stuff, but also, 14 individuals that probably didn't have anything to do with either side of this, any side of this, lost their lives that day. And some of them way too young, all of them way too young. And then that would set, a precedence for the next month of, what the Taliban would go and preach to everybody that we did.
Oh, yeah.
And that doesn't help you in a clean situation. You're in a counterinsurgency fight and you're down there fighting the Taliban, and then you kill 14 people on accident, and then they are instantly going to take that and run that as propaganda against you to recruit local fighters.
Right.
And that's exactly what they did. And they ruled with an iron fist there too.
Right.
I found, but in regard to day 2, HIMARS shut them down. They didn't understand it. Battlefield fell quiet. We had some sporadic little pocket fights that happened, right before sundown, right between that time and sundown. And then the sun started to set. As the sun set, Sergeant Hine from First radioed up and talked to LT, talked about seeing some antennas coming from the direction of the land bridge that we were ultimately supposed to take.
That's right. I forgot about that.
And so we sent out a little leaders recon so we could all get eyes on it. And that's where the plan for the next morning came. And it was like, second was tasked. I was tasked with taking the squad up and finding a place to bed down for the night that was in the vicinity of that had good cover, good fight ability from it, good protections. And the rest of the guys were going to be shaping and holding security, doing their thing. Once we got in and cleared the compound out that we wanted, the rest of the platoon would then fill in. And I really thought that was going to be scarier than it was, because every single building that we had taken fire from that day, all around us, every building, right? And then it was like, we went in there and there was nobody home.
It was actually scary because there was no one home.
That's what I'm saying. We went in there and it was like eerie because there was nobody home. They left in a hurry, you could tell, because they didn't take much. Their animals were gone. They didn't even take down their corral.
Right.
They had this circus tent roof to their animal corral, which ended up being our bedding for the night, because it broke the wind. It was sleeting that night, and so you didn't get sleeted on while you were bedded down, which was amazing. And ultimately, we took that down without a hitch, and we set a post cycle up and a roster. We talked about calling in for. That was several days later that we called ammo and resupplies in, but so we posted up Alamo day 1 or day 2 into day 2.
Yeah.
And
I think the whole platoon was there.
And that's correct.
Yeah.
The whole platoon, after we secured it, filled in, and then the key leaders talked about post cycles, what we were going to do the next day, and we got tasked out with being a support by fire position the next day.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you remember. Well, yeah, you do remember, obviously, but our building was about a few hundred meters in the direct face of 2 mutually fortified machine gun bunkers.
Yeah.
With concrete T-wall barriers on the roof. And
when I've told people about it, it's like Normandy beachhead style, out of a
it's hard to take it serious, but because when we seen them, it was like, get the fuck out of here.
Right.
And you could see them at night. Nobody had even shot at them.
Together.
Yeah, nobody had even shot at us yet, and we're seeing these things through nods, and it's like, here's this giant built in the ground bunker with concrete T barriers all the way up, stacked up, and it's got 6 firing ports cut out of it.
Right.
And you're like, oh, good. And then 50 meters or 100 meters to the right of it, the exact same thing.
And just cannoned just a little bit to each
other.
Just a little bit. You have that interlocking field of fire.
It was beautiful.
Perfect.
I mean,
they knew what they were doing, bro.
They didn't take much to.
No, but
they knew what they were doing. I'm making a joke. It was very well set up. They didn't stand a chance still, but it was set up nice.
When you bring the full force of the Marine Corps infantry and the combined arms dilemma against 2 machine gun bunkers.
Bad times, baby.
We've been doing it since World War I, World War II. And every war we've gotten better at it because our technology has evolved to the point where everything gets involved in the combined arms dilemma. And
100%.
And another thing I was thinking earlier, and we can wrap here soon if you want, but hats off to Major Biggers. Not Major Biggers, Captain Biggers at the time.
At the time.
Yes. He had a lot of moving parts between 3 platoons.
Oh
Getting
my God.
those, getting all that stuff in line and everything. We don't see it. But now thinking back on it and knowing the bigger picture.
Well, yeah, now.
Excellent.
Now it's like, man, good leadership.
Yep.
Good leadership will make or break
you. And the senior
you.
staffs, too. And the senior staff,
No doubt
non-commissioned officers. I mean, everybody, but
no doubt about it.
That was really great.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. Well, let's leave it there for. We'll pick up, and we're not necessarily going to pick up everything, but as we go through the book, some of the key elements we'll pick up. Right now, we've made it through day 3, and a lot of it's going to be early on and then later on. And the reason is early on it was hard fighting for I would say hard every day, all day long fighting for 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah,
and then it started to slow down a bit, and then once we left Camp Allen Hansen area and we made it out to 5 Points, it was like.
Then it
was just like, hey, do you want to get in a gunfight today?
Yeah. Where do we want to go?
Yes. Okay.
Go right here. Yeah.
Yeah. Go right here. Matter of fact, you can go anywhere south of this northing.
Yep.
Or you can go anywhere east of this, easting, and you're in the backyard.
Pretty much.
And we dealt out some resolve to these guys at 5 Points, and some of those stories will probably be where we pick up in the book. And if you guys want to get all the details, all the stuff out of the book that you're not getting through this review, you can simply go to Amazon.com and you can order it online, $16.99. Type in Lions of Marjah or the author named Ryan Rogers, and it'll pop up. It's on Kindle version. It's on paperback. You can also go to Barnes & Noble and request it if they don't have copies out, and they will get them to your store. And we appreciate that support. But let us get these next couple of reviews out of the way and really get into the book some more as we go through, and then we'll be transitioning to Dr. Michael Blair. Dr. Mike Blair is going to join us for our first interview, our first out of the platoon interview, expert interview, and he's an expert in prosthetics and orthopedics doctor, and he's going to give us the gouge on the newest, latest, greatest technology concerning prosthetics, and super excited to make that recording. Dr. Mike is also he's also a vet, a grunt, shot up Iraq, blown up Iraq, gets out, still becomes a doctor, and says, you know what, no factor. I'm going to start fitting these guys with prosthetics. And great dude. So we'll have Dr. Mike coming up for you guys after the book review is done. And we hope you sign in for the next time that we're on. Thank you guys a lot.
If you need to reach us, you can get us on Facebook at Choices Not Chances Podcast. And we're working on the Instagram and the Twitter handles as well. So we're going to get all that stuff out there. And I appreciate it.
Hey, yeah. Also on that, if you go ahead and add us on Choices Not Chances on Facebook, Facebook's going to be our primary thing, and we'd love to have questions from you. If you have questions about the book, questions about certain situations, you can email us at choicesnotchancespodcast@gmail.com. Email any of your questions to that address, and we're going to start doing a Q&A, monthly Q&A or bi-monthly Q&A where we can ask and answer questions and take recommendations from people that you guys want to see. I got doctors coming in for you for prosthetics. I got IED experts coming in. I got MARSOC critical skills operators that have agreed to come in and give some perspectives on some of their fighting in different spots. And love to hear what else you guys want. I can also have doctors come in for mental health on that side of things. Anything that you guys think will help the veteran community, things that you guys particularly want, go ahead and hit that up on the email. Also, don't forget the first annual writing competition. Rules are going to go up on the Facebook page, or are on the Facebook page as of this viewing for this date. and get in it, get after it. Give me some get your work submitted. We're going to have our team put together to review the works, and then again, the rules will be on there, and you guys can check it out. But the winner of the annual writing competition is going to get the opportunity to come in and record, 4-hour slot on anything that they want to talk about regarding their writing.
Right, and it doesn't have to be just about work. It can be about leadership. It can be about whatever you want.
Absolutely, just bring it in. Let's get the creative juices flowing. And look, guys, I started the writing competition because writing my book was therapeutic for me. It was a therapeutic way to use myself and my own reflections as a means of conducting my own internal prolonged exposure to some of my stuff. And I'm doing better because of it, I think. And anything that I can think that I can maybe or have maybe done better with, or because, I'm going to share that here. We help one person, then it was worth it. So again, thanks for sticking with us tonight. We got more stories coming at you, and Dr. Mike Blair coming up.
Thank you.
How we doing, everybody? This is the co-host of Choices Not Chances podcast, Matthew Charette. As mentioned in the beginning of the show, this episode of the podcast is sponsored by Louisiana Gun Shop. The folks at Louisiana Gun Shop have been a longtime supplier of firearms and shooting supplies and services, as well as very good friends of mine. One day, we will get the owner and founder, Harlan Boblet, on the show. At Louisiana Gun Shop, the sky is the limit when it comes to getting the firearms and accessories you want for your current or future firearms. They have a nice selection of handguns, rifles, and shotguns in stock, or can order just about any firearm you could want or need. They specialize in concealed carry handguns and custom AR-15 builds. In addition to firearms, they also carry ammo, suppressors, optics, and a wide variety of gun parts for the upgrade and maintenance of your firearms. If you want to get further into the upgrade side of things, they provide customization services such as Cerakote, laser engraving, and Kydex holsters. So like I stated before, Louisiana Gun Shop is located on Highway 90 West in Broussard, Louisiana, just south of Lafayette. It used to be Louisiana Gun Shop did not have an online presence, but now I am happy to announce that their website is up and ready for business for online sales to all 50 states at louisianagunshop.com. Louisiana Gun Shop also offers Louisiana residents concealed carry classes for a very reasonable price. Harlan's experience in the concealed carry space when it comes to the laws and the do's and the don'ts is pivotal in attaining your Louisiana concealed carry license. As well as the firearm market, Harlan also conducts explosives training for Louisiana blasters licenses for oil field and special effects workers in Louisiana. Workers in these fields from out of state will also need to have their training in this field to complete their work in Louisiana. So whether you need a firearm, upgrade your old firearm, targets and ammo for a range day, or you just like to talk to people who support the Second Amendment, Louisiana Gun Shop is your place, either in person or online. Remember, they are located on Highway 90 West in Broussard, Louisiana, just south of Lafayette, or online at louisianagunshop.com. You can also follow them on Instagram and Facebook at Louisiana Gun Shop. A special thanks to Harlan and Jenny at Louisiana Gun Shop for sponsoring the show. Please support them so they can support us and keep the podcast free for all. Thanks, have a great day, Semper Fi, and God bless America.
Not too far. You're marking the building. Hit him. Yeah, that's good. That's a good shot. That's money. Yeah.